it's so important for us to really address what's underneath and take ownership. And that's what allowed me to get to where I am now because uh, I rejected so much of I would say those all my masculine traits were shadow aspects and I rejected so much of them and they were the exact thing that freed me and I got to keep
Mhm.
the other part too.
Welcome to the Holistic Life Navigation Channel. I'm your host, Luis Mujica. I'm a somatic educator and nutritionist, and I'm here to explore every aspect of life through the lens of somatic psychology, nutrition, and philosophy. Let's dive in. I'm here with Atarah Valentine. I am so excited to be here with you. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. And I was saying before we started this, we've been talking about this for like probably over a year.
hmm
So I'm so excited to have this conversation. I feel like it's been building up for that amount of time and we have so
hmm
much to kind of get into. So uh, looking forward to it.
It has. I want to publicly thank you for your grace when I've had to reschedule because this year my schedule has been so crazy because last minute I would get this kind of deadline for the book and I would have to edit, 250 pages last minute for
Mhm.
2 weeks. And so I've had to push things constantly. So I'm
Yeah.
so glad it finally landed and I get to be with you.
Yes, me too. And what is time?
What is time exactly? Well, I want to tell people first that I was inspired by you. I don't know how it happened. It's the Instagram shuffle where somehow you find
Mhm.
somebody. And I found your post and just your way of speaking, your eyes, your nature already called to me. There was something there that I recognized and it
Mhm.
felt familiar. And then when I looked through your post, I got to see this incredible transformation of
Mhm.
this kind of the predominant part of your life, really repressing, avoiding, even maybe being disgusted by your masculinity, and then seeing this transformation to really invoking it. And what I was saying to you before I hit record, it's really rare in bisexual and gay spaces to hear men talk about their masculinity, in a
Mhm.
positive way or even in a way outside of just like pure like sexual objectification. So
Totally.
it's exciting to bring this to that demographic. I mean, I have a lot of different people listen to this, but to have a conversation with someone who isn't your typical like heterosexual gym bro who,
Totally.
like similar to me, came from this background of really having an issue with anything masculine and really being okay with the feminine. So I just can't wait to dive in with you because this has been a big part of my work of late. And I have this program in January with a bunch of men I'll be doing around this exact thing. So I'm here to soak up a lot of wisdom. Uh,
Amazing.
tell first, let's start with introducing you to the audience. How do you want to be known? What do you want us to know about you?
I mean, you can make your own assumptions and opinions. I don't really lead with a lot because so much of my work is not over identifying with myself and this is who I am. And I'm always just like, I'm a Tara, right? Because I think so much of my life, because I had so much trauma, I was trapped in so many different identities or personas that I thought were going to make me feel something or make me accomplish something. So it's interesting because even with what I do professionally, I'm always kind of reassessing it because that's a living, breathing thing as well. Like I started as a manifestation coach with a company called To Be Magnetic. I was incredibly successful in that space to the point that I was booked out for over a year in advance. I was updating and researching for all of their workshops and kind of helped with their rebrand. And then I left that and I started my company, The Seed Level, with the intention of kind of helping people on a deeper level. Because what I was finding with manifestation work is that it was mirroring a lot of the issues that I worked so hard to grow out of. Right. So, in the process of teaching people, like, yes, a lot of my clients were the most successful clients, even on the podcast. Like, they were getting their book deals, they were getting their partners, they were getting, moving overseas and getting visas and all these things and jobs out of nowhere. But I was noticing that they still weren't happy.
hmm
Right.
hmm
So there was always the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And no one was really able to like lean into the moment. And I realized it's because we're so disconnected from ourselves, right?
hmm
We're so disconnected from our own humanity. And we've been shaped by all of our experiences and our environments and people that may or may not even be in our lives anymore. So I wanted to do deeper work with people to really address that. So it started with heavy identity based work essentially around people's blocks. The most common blocks that I saw were standing in the way of people, whether it was people pleasing, whether it was numbing and avoidance, whether it was fear of presence, right? Whether it was fear of expansion. So people can kind of like work through, first of all the barricades that stop them from doing the next step to figure out who they were. And that was strictly based in hypnosis because that's my background. One of the certifications I went through. But in the process of doing that, I've kind of moved into this different space that's really about essence versus ego, right? People really connecting to the part of themselves that lives to create, that we all want to be a part of something and a piece of something and to belong, and looking at all of the constructs that stop us from having that connection or feeling that connection, whether on a micro level, that full whole connection within ourselves, and then on a macro level, that full whole connection with the world around us. So and that's really just this past year, it's kind of shifted into that space. So whenever people ask me what I do, it's always complicated because they're like, are you a trauma coach? And it's yes, but no. Are you a manifestation coach? Yes, but no. Do you help people with nervous system regulation? Yes, but like I do all of these things. Yeah. It's like, it's like an in-house emotional, spiritual boot camp, essentially.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It took me years to understand what I did.
Right. To do the work, but it's such a complicated question, even though it's so easy. Right. So
yeah.
Yeah, you could.
But I want to pause you there.
Yeah,
because you said something I thought was super important, which I love, a manifestation, because I've seen this as well. You see people actually getting what they want, but can they even handle what they get? Do they even enjoy it? How do they feel?
Do they even actually want it?
Do they even actually want all that? Gets kind of pushed to the side in a culture that's so obsessed with materialism. So I love that you were seeing this quote success of I'm getting what I'm saying I want. But you were, something in you was, what in you got curious before we go into the whole masculine piece? What got curious? What was the red flag that said, the people aren't even happy with what they're getting?
Well, kind of the one red flag for me was we would have, discussions. I'd be like, well, what are people manifesting? What are people manifesting? And I'd be like, well, my clients are feeling really confident. They're feeling really happy. They're feeling really, I'm like, yeah, but what are they manifesting? And I was like, ooh, this feels so misaligned for me. Right? Because if there's anything I've tried to understand myself in life, it's like how to be happy, how to feel fulfilled, how to feel purposeful, right? And it's not through like spiritual consumerism, right? Which is what a lot of manifestation has become. And I was like, these people that I'm interacting with, and it's not everybody, like if people want to go do that work, like it's a great company to do that work if you want stuff, right? But there is deeper work that has to happen off the back of that, in the sense that what I realized was that's what I cared about. That's what the people I was working with cared about. They're like, honestly, like, I want to manifest self-esteem. I want to manifest self-worth. And I'm like, well, you don't manifest that. You build it. You create it. You have to put reps in, right? Like it takes time and it's work, right?
Yeah,
it's a practice.
That's right.
Like just like you practiced, whether it was consciously or unconsciously, being insecure or being afraid playing small. Like you have to practice something else than the neurosciences, and then you build new neural pathways, especially if you attach emotional intensity and you're doing it over and over and over and you have repetition. Like, so for me, that was so much more exciting because anything in my life that I got good at, I practiced, right? And I made things happen. My issue is once I made the things happen, I thought it was supposed to make me feel something about myself, right?
Yeah.
And so even if I got the record deal, which I did, or the publishing deal, which I did, or like the great relationship, which I did, or like the, well over 6-figure salary, which I did, even though I grew up in a trailer, right? I got there and I felt so empty, and I took, the evidence of achieving it as, oh, this is a failure because this didn't make me feel how I thought it was going to. When in reality, it was just feedback, and it was my next thing to practice. Actually having gratitude, actually being present, actually being able to receive this, actually being able to, even before I go after it, to begin to build the capacity to hold the life that I say that I want intellectually.
That's right. That's right. That's a big part of my work is, do you have the capacity to even hold the thing you say you want? Because you can get it. But
and then the truth is
different.
The answer is usually no, as much
Yeah.
as we want to tell ourselves yes, because if you had the capacity, you'd have it already.
Well, that's right. And I really appreciate what you said about practice. I was just saying this to a group of students earlier that what we think about, like, I hate myself, for example, someone will
Yeah,
say, you don't actually hate yourself. You've practiced the story of hating yourself. So it's so
totally.
ingrained, like when you say put in the reps. So I
Yep.
like people to always hear that everything we do is a practice, whether we know it or not. It's a
Yeah.
repetitive thing that creates a sense of it. It actually takes root in our body, then it becomes our lives. So to practice the other thing, like you say, putting the reps in, it helps you
Hmm.
develop something new. I love that. Rather than I'm going to
Totally.
grab this thing that's going to make me feel this way, it's no, I have to actually go inside and connect and create some practice and ritual
Yeah.
around that.
Yeah. And like, the truth of it is just because it's also called a practice doesn't make it easy because
Hmm.
if you're not comfortable in your own body, if you're not comfortable in your life, if you don't know who you are, if silence feels terrifying, it's going to be really difficult at first. And a lot of people give up at that point because it's so easy to pick up your phone and scroll through and numb and then binge eat. And I know like you talk about this stuff a lot as well and have all of those numbing behaviors and coping mechanisms just kind of help you float through life without challenge. Because when we feel challenged or we face fear, we take it as a sign to stop, not a sign that we're actually about to break
Hmm.
through the parameters that we've been stuck in our whole life. And that's why I have so much respect actually for what I do. And I wish something like this existed for me because therapy was never the answer. And I'm not
Hmm.
knocking therapy, but I'm not interested in what people's diagnosis is. I'm interested in what the choices unconsciously or consciously were that they made that their nervous system adapted to become this person.
That's
Right.
great.
Right. So for me, that's so exciting, but if you're not curious and if you're afraid to be curious, it's going to be really hard to grow.
So to turn that to your experience around masculinity, which
Yeah.
was the thing that just, really inspired me when I learned about you. First of all, how many years did you live in a body that you didn't like? I believe you had an eating disorder where
Yeah.
you didn't like your masculinity. Like, tell us the story of that. What's that about?
Yeah. So I would say my whole life, right?
How long was that? Like,
I'm 44 now.
okay,
I began doing this at 40, which is crazy because
amazing.
everybody told me I wasn't going to be able to.
Hmm.
I'm too old. I'm not going to be able to put muscle on. Now your endocrine system is involved. You're going to have to get blood work and this. And I was like, but like, why wouldn't I just try
Hmm.
first? Right. So my whole life, I mean, I wouldn't only just say I had an eating disorder. I'd say also had body dysmorphia. I also was really confused around my sexuality. I started being bullied when I was 6 years old when I moved back to New Jersey. Like that's the first time someone called me a faggot. Right.
Hmm.
And that story kind of followed me my whole entire life. And I always thought it was amazing. I did. Like when I'm on my own, I'm like, because I was my essence. I was in my essence. Like my time alone, I was always painting and drawing and dancing and performing and connecting with people and just giggling and laughing. Like I was so alive and I was so free. And then when I started mixing with peers, in particular, when I moved back to New Jersey, it was almost like nobody wanted me. And they didn't like that I had confidence. It was like, who are you when
Hmm.
you're like this skinny little whatever kid who's not trying to fit in? Like, how dare you have confidence?
Yeah.
And people found it very threatening. So I was extremely bullied. So I had not a single friend who was a guy, probably until I was a teenager. And I would say maybe had two.
You
It
know, I have
wasn't right.
very similar. Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
No male friends, and the only ones
no,
I had were my closet boyfriends.
yeah,
So
right. And
that was as far as I got.
yeah, but I didn't even have boyfriends because I was so ashamed of my sexuality and I was so afraid of it that like, suicidal ideation and like trying to commit suicide, all this was such a huge part of my life because I'd lived being shamed for something that one, I had no control over because it's not a choice. I didn't
No.
choose to be gay, right? And two, when you're met with so much conflict, I just did not want them to be right.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And so I kept myself in a silo. I said, like, before, and it wasn't like it is now. Like, people don't understand this. Like, being gay, like, people's families weren't having coming out parties for them.
Nope.
People weren't
Nope.
cool with it in school. Like, people weren't, choosing pronouns and
Nope.
able to identify as something else. Like, this is what you were. And even within that binary, if you did not do it exactly right, you were bullied and you were tortured.
Well,
Period.
you were in
Right.
Jersey. I
I
was
was in
in
New Jersey.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So
So you get
similar.
it. Yes.
And I mean, when you were called gay, when you were called a faggot, when you were called a fairy, it was like a death sentence. Like it was a
Yeah.
scarlet letter that you now walked upon, and
Yeah.
everyone threw it at you. So
Well,
you're
even the
absolutely
word
correct.
queer, which has
Oh,
been kind of
no,
taken,
no
like,
one was
that
queer
was
when you
like
grew up.
the worst.
Yes, it was.
Right. So,
Yes, it
like, when
was.
people started saying, like, oh, I'm queer, I'm like, ooh, like, it would like really hit me.
Mhm.
But like, I was like, why are you saying that? Right.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
again, like, all this programming. So for me, uh, women were my safety.
Yep.
All of my friends were girls. My mom, my sisters, like, I was so close with them. I was close with my aunts. Like, I would feel when we had family functions, like, and this sounds like it's the 1950s, but it's still how things were in the 80s and the early 90s. Like, the guys went in a room and did something after, and then the girls went in a room, and I was forced to go with the guys, and I would like cry. I
Mm.
so badly did not want to be around them. And not just because they were men, but because my example of men was toxic.
Yeah.
My dad was emotionally and physically abusive. My stepdad was emotionally and physically abusive. Like, I learned men hurt women. And for me, and I saw that over and over and over my whole life. And so for me, I rejected that part of myself so early, because how could I be something if that very thing hurts all of the people I care about the most?
Hmm. Let's just pause to feel that together, because what I'm trying to highlight with this conversation and other ones is how men start to hate masculinity in themselves because of how it's being modeled to them.
100%.
And that
Right.
being a man is not innately toxic or abusive, but a lot of us, especially the generation we came from, that
Mhm.
was kind of all you got for the
100%.
majority of
Yeah.
people. So I
Yeah.
just appreciate that snapshot of you feeling so dysphoric in your
Yeah.
natural sex expression because of
Mhm.
how men, were showing themselves, and you didn't want anything
Totally.
to do with that.
Yeah. And on top of that, my stepdad was a Marine, right? So, like,
Yeah.
add that layer on top of it, right? Where there's order in this, and you do this and you don't do this. And
Mhm.
I would even, if I wore socks that had stripes on them, I go to my uncle's house and he called me a faggot because real men wear white socks.
Yep.
I'd be like, whoa, like, I can't even get like the kind of socks I'm supposed to wear right. And like, and my natural inclinations and interests, even though I was incredibly creative, I was incredibly talented, were not really supported. I was thrown in baseball. I just stood at the base. I didn't swing. There's actually a video of me. um, it's my turn, and I realize my shirt's not tucked in nicely, and I unbutton my pants and I drop the bat and I start tucking my shirt in for like 5 minutes, and people are like, what is he doing?
Because
Like, I
that's what
just was,
mattered.
yeah, that's what
That's what
mattered to me.
mattered in
Like,
that moment.
I was not trying to play the sport. In
Yeah.
basketball, I was just excited to take like the picture in the uniform, and I bought a watch that matched the color of my jersey. And the coach yelled at me and told me I had to take it off because you don't wear a watch where you play basketball. And I cried so hysterically that they let me keep it on, because it was literally the only reason that I was there. Right. So,
Yeah, that's really sweet.
right. But so for me, it just kind of felt like every version of me trying to just be a guy was bad or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't want me. Right. And women were so loving toward me and so supportive and believed so much in me. And that's why I have such strong empathy now. Right. And I have such care, and I love giving. And that kind of, because I didn't have any balance, that went sideways.
Yes.
Pretty
Tell us
quickly.
about that. How did that
Yeah.
go sideways? That's an important
Yeah. So
part of this.
because especially the women who had the biggest influence on me were so far, and I even hate using like male, female, like, as far as like when people talk about culturally, like
Hmm.
what the role is of a woman and what the role of, like, because the truth is it's bullshit, right? And but the balance, the duality of nature in
Absolutely. Well, I always
general,
say
right?
feminine and masculine are energies, and
Yes,
sex hormones amplify them, but they're
yes,
not designated to actual biological sex. But we're talking about essentially the women in your life brought in the
yes,
feminine, the men in your life brought in the masculine. It's the
yes,
space you're bringing it.
yeah. But they were almost in this place where they had it too much,
Yeah.
right? Where there was no actual discipline. Like my grandmother hated seeing people hurting. Like seeing somebody suffer to my grandmother was like the most painful thing. And she just wanted to fix everything for everybody. So as a result, my one uncle ended up being homeless. Even though he was in and out of rehabs and all that stuff, he died homeless on the streets of New York. Like, 10 years ago, maybe. My other uncle was a drug addict and alcoholic who had like so many diseases and things from like sharing needles and like again died very unhealthy circumstances. My mom married very abusive men that like she wanted to make better and fix and take care of, and right. So
Hmm.
I and because you don't see that when you're a kid, you're just like, oh my god, my mom's amazing, I want to be
Hmm.
like that, I want to care, I want to give. But I gave more than I actually had so much of the time.
You
And
didn't
it's
learn any boundaries.
and I had no boundaries. Like, what was a boundary? Like, no one even said the word boundary until like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, there was no such thing in my house. Like, I grew up in a house where like we didn't have locks on our doors, right?
Yeah.
Minus the bathroom. Like, that's how I grew up. You weren't allowed to lock your door. You weren't allowed personal space, right? So eh, I followed that because it felt safe. It felt like the kind of person that I wanted to be so badly. And then it would backfire and I'd feel rejected. And then I'd give more and try and do more and try and be more. And in
So
the
what you really did, you invoked an unbalanced form of the feminine. Because when we're talking about
incredibly so.
duality, I think what people don't always get is feminine is energy that goes receptive, masculine is energy that comes out. And again, like I say, I don't assign that necessarily to sex, though I do believe
Totally.
sex hormones amplify it.
Yeah.
But to be in relationship with that in and out in a balanced way for all
Totally.
people is so incredible.
Yeah.
But if you're just invoking or leaning into the feminine, you're so receptive that you literally have no expression of a no or a boundary or a sense of self in that way. You
100.
lose that.
Yeah. 100%. And so that's really what got me into this work because I was just constantly confronted with so much pain
Mhm.
based on what I was or what I wasn't or what I was choosing to be and all of these things that I've always been someone who was looking for more answers. Like, why am I here? Why is this my life? Why does this keep happening to me when I'm modeling like the people that I love? I'm doing what they do. Like, do they feel like this, or is it just me because they seem fine? And asking all. And I mean, at like 11 years old, like I was buying
Mhm.
books on like Buddhism. Like, obviously, I was raised Catholic, so I had all of that stuff as well. Like, I was just so curious for answers, and it's interesting because I would have moments where because I think creativity is the perfect balance of those energies because you have to be so open and receptive and feel and go to those places to actually harness this stuff, and then you have to go into the other place to have essentially like the discipline to be like, okay, this and
Mhm.
this is how it goes
Mhm.
out and this is how I'm doing the marketing and this, and to kind of have this other piece, right? And it's also like
Absolutely.
intellect and emotion also plays into that, right? And so I would have these moments when I would tap into that, but then when I needed to stay in that other space, I couldn't, and I would always shrink. Even if I would get my record deal, okay, like now, who do I have to be so they like me? Who do I have to be
Mhm.
to this?
Mhm.
And I would kind of lose that stronger part of myself, right?
Now, would you
Um,
say that's because you still have these negative associations with
oh,
masculinity? Is that what it came down to?
100%, right? Because I didn't want anyone to not like me.
Yeah.
I didn't ever
Yeah.
want anybody to look at me the way I looked at my stepdad. I didn't
Yeah.
want to be the bigger person in the sense, the person taking up more space in the room, because what I learned is all the people who aren't taking up space feel really bad about themselves. So I
Mhm.
don't ever want to do that to someone. I don't
Mhm.
ever want to make someone feel small, consciously or unconsciously, right? So that means like I have to continue to be that way. right? And that's not definitely not a path to any kind of success, whether it's like emotional success for
Mm-hmm.
yourself or financial success or career success.
Listen, do you hear something? That's the sound of warm, delicious, glorious Costa Rica. And this is where I am headed next. On February 28th, I'm hosting a week-long retreat at the stunning Blue Spirit Retreat Center, and it's going to focus on recovering from emotional eating and people-pleasing by finding safety within. And there's truly not a better place for me to teach this than Blue Spirit. Blue Spirit has created a literal sanctuary for wildlife, native plants, and people who are lucky enough to retreat there. Picture a vibrant jungle canopy atop a hill with a saltwater infinity pool, yoga classes, next-level local cuisine, and beautiful views of the land and sea. Not to mention the very special, magical experience of wading in the saltwater pool while a crew of little baby monkeys rests on the branches above you. Your room is situated just minutes from the most beautiful ocean I've ever met, with tide pools featuring everything from blue octopus to starfish and a rainbow variety of tropical fish. And yes, I will be personally introducing you to each and every one of them. So let's go into the retreat itself. I'll be joined by my dear friends Zach and Camille as we teach you the art of finding safety in yourself, especially as it relates to fawning and people-pleasing and eating habits, which are all very connected. I'm going to teach you how to eat to recover from stress and trauma, how to use food cravings as a compass for unmet needs, how to tend to your capacity for being seen and being uncomfortable so you can stop fawning so much, and how to embody and ground big emotions and sensations that arise in your body. It's an easy flight to the airport, and Blue Spirit will manage your transportation from there. Visit holisticlifenavigation.com and click on events for more information, or click on the link in the episode details. We will be waiting for you on the other side in glorious, warm, vibrant Costa Rica. Hold on a minute. So take me to this. So here's this kind of decades of this experience
Yeah,
developing since like, I
decades.
hear since these decades. And then 4 years ago, something shifted. What's the beginning of that shift? Was it a sudden moment? Was it over time? Like, what made you say,
Yeah.
I want to consciously invoke this masculine energy that I've hated, had disgust with? Like, tell me a bit about how that played out.
Yeah. So just kind of because I taught so much shadow work
Hmm.
in my last job, and that's really what everybody came to me. And if anyone knows anything about shame, it's me, because shame has literally fueled my entire existence up until like a handful of years ago.
You, you have a personal master's, a lifelong master's in shame.
I have like fucking 10 PhDs in shame. Yeah. Right. So I was just realizing like, oh, I'm teaching these things and I still low key am afraid of food. I'm still
Mm.
always teetering on the edge of some kind of disordered eating, whether it's punishing myself for eating too much because I would binge, or like not having any food in the house, even so I don't like put weight on, right? And like working out, or I would exercise because I ate something bad, or I ate something I wasn't supposed to, right? It was always the reaction to the shameful behavior, right? And on top of that, because, I'd been in the music industry for so many years, I got my first record deal when I was 24, and I was told to begin lying about my age because I was too old, right? They're like, well, by the time you finish your first record and your tour, you're going to be like 27, and that's almost 30, and people are going to think you're irrelevant. So I had this whole other piece around age that was terrifying. And I turned 40, and I kind of woke up and I was like, I don't give a fuck. Genuinely. And it was just this, I
Just
watched
sudden shift you woke up with.
yeah. And I said to my husband, like, there was a Tina Turner documentary that came out, and it had all these tapes of old interviews, and it's talking about how she restarted her career at 40 years old as Tina Turner. And I watched and I was so inspired, and I'm like, I can do that. It was so expansive for me. And I woke up the next day, and I kind of, because emotionally I was in a much better place than I had been for most of my life. And I looked at myself one day and I said, why don't I look the way that I feel?
What was that? How'd you look and how'd you feel?
I was still probably like 140 pounds. I'm 6 foot. Um, Bony, no muscle. My arms from my wrist all the way up to my shoulder were the same. My legs were really thin. I had like fat stored on my stomach because I wasn't eating properly. So
Hmm.
I was holding extra fat there for survival. And I had, long hair. It was blue, I think, at the time because I was trying to like unconsciously rebel against what I was told
Yeah,
to be at 40 years old. So like I
sure.
did what I did when I was a teenager to be like, fuck the rules, right? But actually, and it was authentic in the sense that I didn't actively choose to do it. It felt
Hmm.
like the right thing. And it
Yeah, I get
almost
it.
it gave me like a freedom, if that makes sense. But it wasn't real freedom. It
Uh-huh.
was rebellion. Right.
Yes.
And rebellion is never real freedom,
Well,
in my
it's
opinion.
also a form of regression.
Yeah, because it's a reaction to
Hmm.
what I think someone else thinks about me, not
That's right.
to what I think about myself,
That's
right?
right.
So, yeah, so that's where I was and that's how I looked and I was just like, I'm going to change this. And there was he's a friend of mine now, but there was a guy who worked at the door around COVID when things started opening back up and I noticed his body change like pretty rapidly. And I said to him, like, what are you doing? Like, you look so different just in like these handful of months. He's like, oh, I've been really interested in, sports science and nutrition. And I was thinking of becoming a trainer. And I said to him, like, listen, if you do that, I will be your first client. I will help you get clients. I will, because, I have like a bunch of people I work with. I obviously a lot of friends and things like that. And
Now,
so
wait. What made you trust this man coming from this kind of male dysphoric place? What made you say, I want you to be my trainer? What was it about?
yeah. So again, it was totally unconscious. I didn't know anything really about him at this time, but turns out like he was gay. He was raised Mormon, right? Dealt with a lot of the stuff, had
Yeah,
the kind of same similar traumas that I
just picked
did.
up on that.
Yeah, and we just like kind of connected, and he looked like the version of me that I wanted to be. Like I was like,
Hmm.
oh, if my body was like that, that's how I feel, right?
Hmm.
So how do I physically get that?
Hmm.
And then I saw it in him, and I started working out with him, and because I have a few certifications in neurolinguistic programming, I'm so fascinated by modeling, and I'm so fascinated by people's internal narratives and why they do what they do. So unlike all of his other clients who are just going like moving weight around, I'm like, what are you thinking about when you're lifting weights? Like when you're standing, are you engaging your abs the whole time? Like what? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, 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 but you do know. Like just slow it down. I want you to think about when you're walking around, like how are you maintaining your posture? And he goes, oh, well, I'm not engaging my abs actually. I'm tucking my ribs down. I'm pushing my pelvis forward and that's flattening my stomach on its own. And then I always roll my shoulders back and down. So then I would practice that for 2 weeks. And like that's who I am as a person anyway. But because I have language around it now because of school, I'm able to really tap into that and help people on that front. And like, but my first client was myself, right? So I took it very, very seriously. The amount of changes I had physically, even the people in the gym who were huge were like, how is that happening? Because everybody told me it would be slow because protein synthesis is supposed to go down and all of this stuff and recovery is supposed to be slower. My body changed so rapidly in the first like 4 to 6 months that my trainer even asked me, he's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you taking? Like, and it's funny, but I mean, not funny because can be assholes and just so cruel. But in the process of me doing this and continuing to do this, it's been at this point 3.5 years, maybe for almost 4 years. I've never missed a workout. I've never not hit my macros, not one day. I put every single thing into my phone, not because I'm afraid of food, but because I know it's mathematical. I need X amount of protein to build muscle, X amount of fat, X amount of carbohydrates. It's a system, right? And I've honored that system and I've stayed with that system to the point that I was 145 or 150 pounds at that time. And I'm 184 pounds now and it's not fat and I'm
Hmm.
strong and I'm big and like I'm almost
Yeah,
twice the width I used to be to
yeah,
the
you are.
point that people started a Reddit thread accusing me of being on steroids, which the reality is I'm way too vain to be on steroids. I don't want to get, like all the things I've never had to deal
Of
with. I've never
course.
had acne. I don't want to start now.
Yes,
I don't
yes.
want to lose my hair. I'm obsessed with my hair, right? It's like, so, but it's interesting as I've come into myself more and felt more attractive and looked more strong and really leaned into my masculinity. It's almost like a lot of the people who quote unquote trusted me as this smaller, more broken version of myself
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
rejected me
mm-hmm.
when I became actually the thing we're all working toward, when I became the thing that I'm teaching that we all say that we want. And it's really interesting because sometimes I'll even look at other practitioners and I'll say, like, and not from a place of judgment, like a
Mm-hmm.
place of like just trying to figure things out, because there was a point I was so dim as far as like my energy and my light, not intellectually. And I felt so small and I felt so insecure and I felt so uncomfortable in my body. And all these people wanted to work with me. And then when I got stronger, people were like, oh, he seems like he's bossy now, or he's this, or he's that. And as I made more money, like, oh, he's wearing a Balenciaga this and blah, blah, blah. And he's this, and he's become the, but it's like, no, no, no. I'm becoming myself like more and more. And not in a sense of from an egoic place. Like I'm becoming the version of me that creates and gives and doesn't really even consider, like I don't consider myself. I don't go, what do I want to do? And this person's making me feel like the version of me that I've become is this just very balanced version who is just a vessel that is open for life to receive, to give, to receive, to give, to learn, to share, to create, to put it into the world, to learn, to influence, like everything I was always afraid of, right? Everything I always hoarded for myself, because I have the confidence and the strength now, physiologically and emotionally, to be able to be that. I don't have to be guarded. I don't have to be boundaried. I don't have to be careful who I say things to. I'm not afraid of any of it coming back at me. Like
Well, pause here a minute.
yeah,
There's a bunch of stuff. So the one thing I'm curious about is when you started working out, was that the kind of catalyst of invoking your masculinity? Were there other things that came along with that? How did you feel more masculinity, even more of your maleness, and
yeah.
not hate it? Was it natural? Did it take work? Was it conscious? I'm curious about that relationship to that piece of you.
Yeah, yes, it took a lot actually. First and foremost, I I created such a strong bond and friendship with my trainer. Um, just a level of safety I never felt with another guy, like where,
Mhm.
especially where it's not romantic, right? Just like
Yeah.
a friend
Yes. It's
that you
important.
don't want to sleep with, you don't want anything from. It's just this unity, and we really saw each other and understood each other to the point like when I stopped working with him, we both cried, like we felt like it was a breakup
Mhm.
because we just became so ingrained in each other's lives and such positive influences in each other's lives. And as a result of that, the more I physically was feeling confident, like my posture changed and I just became more embodied simply from the physiological point of like my muscles were holding up my
Literally, you
body
had
the
more.
right
Yeah,
way, like
exactly.
literally, right?
Yeah.
Like I wasn't sure, like I can't even do the posture I used to, which is like I and which I call it to people, I say like you're apologizing with your shoulders,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I can't even do it. Like my shoulders won't like physically go more
Your
forward
muscles
than
will not
this.
allow them
Yeah,
to
like
go.
like I can't make myself small anymore. And there
Well, I
is
get this. I get this image of this trainer as being this kind of reclamation of the male role model for you. Is this kind of guy
one,
that's
yeah,
doing all the
100%,
masculine stuff, but in a much more balanced way that you could actually align with,
one
like
hundred
like
percent. And
reparenting
then
you in this interesting way.
yeah, and then well, and also like in a weird way, teaching me co-regulation around my feelings
Mhm.
of masculinity,
Yes.
completely unconsciously,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so then what happened was because our dialogue was so great, then all the other like guys in the gym started like talking to me and introducing themselves. And my friend, Dr. Tara, she's a neuroscientist. We work together with To Be Magnetic, and we're really close friends now. But she came over when this transformation first happened, and she was laughing because she's like, Atara, all of these like straight guys who walk by you like want acknowledgement from you. Like they look at me and they're like, hey, blah, blah, blah. It's like And we were like shaking, laughing. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck happened, right? Because anytime I would walk by a guy, a group of
Yeah.
guys, like they would bully me or make
Oh
fun of me.
yeah.
And like,
Oh yeah.
right. And something
The big
just
shift there.
changed.
Well, so
And then,
what was
yeah,
that part like for you to actually, because I know for
yeah,
me, there was a lot of like straight phobia and I was
yeah,
terrified of straight men.
yeah.
What was it like for you to feel, wow, they're actually respecting me? That must have
I
been a
didn't
huge,
trust it. Like I
yeah,
didn't get it. I
I
felt
would
like I
think
was in
not.
like an episode of Black Mirror, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
because I didn't feel any different than I'd ever felt.
Mm.
I just looked different. And I
Yeah.
think there was more of a congruence. And I think a lot of times when we have conflict with people, it's because we're picking up on some kind of incongruence that we can't trust.
Hmm.
Right. So for me, it's interesting because there's I guess I could say like a friend, but Christian Gonzalez, Dr. G, right? He has a podcast that I went on. And at that time, it was like before I started working out, like I was working out a little bit, but I didn't put on like a lot of size or anything yet. And I was much more feminine looking. I had long blonde hair. I was wearing like pearls, but with like a jean jacket and whatever else, and like a hat. And because my voice is lower, all these people were like, this is a deep state trans implant who's been sent to brainwash us. And like, just would say the craziest stuff. And I would message them because like I always confront it. And I'd be like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, what made you uncomfortable about this?
Hmm.
Like, I'm just a guy. Like,
Hmm.
I'm just a guy. Right. And that's the first time I said that. Right. Because which was interesting, but and I believed it, right? And then she's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. There's just this, and I saw this thing on Facebook, and blah 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 blah." Because everyone's so brainwashed these days,
Yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
I really take it upon myself to like dispel rumors about like every gay guy like loves this and talks like this and does
Yep.
this and
Yep.
does, right? It's like it's not true. Like everyone's a fucking human being, right? And so, just in the process of doing that, I started being like, oh, weird. And then I started making a lot of new guy friends and like straight guy friends who would go and like, even like my friend Ben I was with last night, him and my friend Austin, dudes, gym bros, met Austin years ago when he, was just starting acting. They lift weights shirtless together. Their bodies are amazing, like just a lot of muscle and ride motorcycles, like so not me. Right. And I usually would pick the plan when we would hang out. And I was like, why don't you guys pick? And they picked like a bar and they're like, let's play darts and play pool. And I'm like, what fucking world am I living in? Right. Because, and I don't know if I said this already or said to you off of this, but because even when I was a kid, if I would watch an episode of Roseanne, I would leave the room when Dan and his friends were the main characters and were
Hmm.
playing cards. Like it just had no interest. I had no
Hmm.
interest. I had no connection to it. Right. It just felt
Yeah.
like this other
Well,
world.
even more than no connection, you were repelled, it sounds like.
Yeah, I 100%. And so they're playing darts, and I'm like, I'll just watch. Right. I'll just watch. And they're just like, just play. And I was like, no, I was like a little uncomfortable. And it's a weird thing. And then
Hmm.
I was like, because I'm uncomfortable, I should play. Right.
Hmm.
Like, let me practice what I preach here. And again, my NLP training, I said, like, what do you think about when you're about to throw the dart? What are you focusing on? What do you this? And they're like, I don't know. Like, I just, kind of nothing. I'm just throwing it. And I was like, well, I'm going to learn nothing from you. Right.
Hmm.
So I started looking at the people next to us and I started noticing like how they were adjusting their bodies and what they were doing. And I said to my friends, I'm like, I'm going to play until I get a bullseye and then I'm going to stop. And I would have stayed there for like 6 hours, just FYI, because it's my personality. What once I commit to something. And so I kept watching these people and I adjusted and I felt, and I was getting closer and they were like, ooh, and I was like, literally don't talk. Like I need all of my focus. And I got a bullseye, like not that long into doing it. And it was this weird, then we played pool and like we won the pool game, me and my friend Ben. And it was just this kind of reinvention of myself
Yes,
through
that's what
these
I'm hearing.
micro actions.
Yeah,
And
I'm
then
seeing it's like an initiation into these
yeah,
platonic male
yes,
bonding experiences
yeah,
that you didn't get to really experience early on.
no. And then, and then I learned really so much. All my biases that I'd held on to for such a long time to
Hmm.
protect myself. Like, I've become really close friends with a lot of just dudes, but
Absolutely.
how a lot of people will call gym bros at this point.
Yeah.
And I thought like they're vapid and they just talk about the weather and sports. And like what I found is, and even with my like straight male clients, they are the most emotionally intelligent people I've ever talked to. They're just
Mhm.
not afforded the opportunity because it's judged and it's criticized if
Mhm.
they're too
Mhm.
soft or too this. And and they'll just say to me like they're like, I love being around you because you're just so kind.
Mm.
You're so thoughtful. Like you're such a like I just feel so like cared for. I feel so taken care of. And like I'll even meet like some of the girls that I know, their boyfriends, and they're like, you're such a giving person. I hope someone is giving to you the way that you're giving to everybody else. And I'm like, right. And at
Well,
first, but
so
now I'm like, oh no, like this is how people act when they're allowed to.
when they're allowed to, right?
Right.
But what I hear from this, and then I want to start wrapping up, I hear this piece, kind of like a general piece of wisdom for everybody around these biases we form because of our own marginalized experiences, let's say. They
Yeah.
keep you from alchemizing these parts of yourself to
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you had this bias against straight men because of how they treated you growing up, which I had a similar bias,
Yeah.
then you are so divided from them that then you can dehumanize them and continue disliking them and disliking those parts of you. So
And
these
you
straight
look
men,
for what
like,
you expect.
absolutely, but these
Right.
straight men kind of like stitched you back into these parts of yourself, these male qualities that you didn't think were possible. Sounds like they were
100%.
big, major teachers for you.
Yeah, and it wasn't. But listen, everybody should be a major teacher for you, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the problem that I see in the world right now is everyone just wants to like lean into their assumption, reinforce their assumption. Our algorithms, all they do is reinforce our assumptions and our biases. Like, and we're just moving further and further and further and
Hmm.
further apart
Hmm.
on every single level. And it's so easy to forget, like, we're all human beings. Like, we're
Hmm.
all dealing with the same emotions. We're all living life. Like, yes, some of us are more privileged, some of us are less privileged. But even within that, there's a
Yep,
relativity to our own experience,
there is.
right? So we can't just be like, oh, well, you're doing that. Well, why aren't you posting about this? Or why are you doing this? Why are you that? It's like, it's so vile and it's so toxic. And it's literally ego just taking over completely. And people think ego is this, when they talk about it, they don't even realize they're doing it. Because when you ask someone, because I ask people this almost every day, what you think ego is, and they're like, oh, like really selfish and arrogant, like it's all about them and they're big. And but it's actually not. I'm like, ego's a really frightened,
Hmm.
scared little child that's pretending to be bigger than it is to keep itself safe.
Hmm.
Right.
That's my experience too.
And
Yep.
right. And we're so quick to fall into that and then believe that that's who we are and completely forget about all these other parts of ourselves that are so important, that are actually way more informed and less neurotic than this one
Hmm.
piece that's calling all the shots, right?
Hmm.
And it's so important for us to soften that. It's so important for us to really address what's underneath and take ownership. And that's what allowed me to get to where I am now, because uh, I rejected so much of, I would say those all my masculine traits were shadow aspects, and I rejected so much of them, and they were the exact thing that freed me, and I got to keep
Hmm.
the other part too, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's so, and I think if we can get to a place, because I think even just what's happening in this country and what's happening politically and how all of this stuff is influencing people, and people are terrified of trans people and afraid of this and afraid of that, and if we can just all understand that the truth lives in the fact that we all embody all of this.
Yep.
There's a gentleness and there's a caring and there's a giving and there's a strength and there's a power and there's a will. And it's not masculine or feminine or good or bad or male or female. It's actually being a whole human being, because you are a part of something bigger, whether you're religious or science tells us we all came from a fucking explosion. We're all made of protons, neutrons, electrons. Like everything's the same. We have a different level of consciousness. What are you doing with yours? Right?
So that's perfect note to end this piece on. And for people that are feeling this sense of deepening what you do and wanting to work with you, tell us about these two things, the seed level and the nervous system gym. Tell us about
Yeah.
that.
So my company is called the Seed Level, and that's within that. There's a bunch of different workshops. A lot of them are like 5-week protocols. There are a couple new things that really go in great alignment with what we're talking about. There's something launching called Ego versus Essence. Just creating a space for you to actually feel who you are instead of thinking about who you are and thinking you know who you are intellectually. A space that you can park that part, that persona, all the rigid structures that we hold on to stay safe, or the parts that we think are good, to actually feel what wholeness feels like underneath that. And then the kind of component to that is the nervous system gym, where we do the kind of physiological work, whether it's using breath work and building CO2 tolerance, right, through certain exercises. Because if you can do that, you're essentially putting yourself in a stress loop and a stress situation in a controlled environment, so that you can build capacity to hold more, so that if you have anxiety, if you have panic attacks and things like this, you're beginning to teach your body that, oh, this discomfort isn't unsafe. Mm-hmm. And then that transfers over into your life. And when you start noticing these little signs, you don't actually jump down the rabbit hole. You're able to regulate yourself. So those are the two components I'm the most excited about. And I think, if people are looking for something to really just understand where they're at and have a really strong mirror, I have something called the Identity Algorithm. It's the cheapest workshop of all of them. And it's essentially my onboarding practice I was using for clients, just so they can see in black and white, literally where they're at, how they feel, what's their relationship to money, to their body, to this, their belief system, how did they get programmed. It's like a school for how you became the way that you are. Because you're not who you are how you are. And if you don't understand how you are, it's really hard to change. Right. So it's just a mirror. It doesn't give you the solution in that workshop, but it just gives you everything you need to know, all of the answers of what's holding you back and why, so that you can take the next step.
My friend, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing this. I love hearing stories of people invoking the parts of them that they repressed and how it made them more whole and more balanced. So I thank you for that and the way you shared it.
And let me know next time you come out here. Again,
for sure. For sure.
I'd love to hook up. All right.
Good, love.
Thank you so much,
nice
Luis.
Nice to meet you, my friend. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for watching today's episode. Please like and subscribe if you found it useful, and let me know in the comments what you want me to cover next. I have developed a 4-week self-paced course that takes 18 years of my personal and professional experience and puts it into one place where you can easily and quickly learn the foundations of recovering from stress and trauma. How does the food you eat affect your stress levels? How do the relationships in your life create stress or peace? How does the relationship you have with your body allow you to feel happier and more settled? I will cover all this and so much more in this 4-week self-paced course. And the best part, it's self-paced. You don't have to sign up at a certain date or finish it at a certain time. It's yours for life, and it's waiting there for you when you're ready to finish it. Throughout this course, I'll be teaching you philosophies and practices that combine my 3 favorite modalities: somatic experiencing, embodied parts work, and nutrition. For more information on this course, click on the link in my episode details.